Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to our last session of the day, Amplifying Opportunity Through Financial Aid, how we can aim higher for students and families. We know that education after high school is critical today, but affordability has limited access to post-secondary programs for many Washington State students and families. Joining us today to share more about available resources are our panelists, Amelia Moore, Assistant Director of Policy and Planning, Washington State Achievement Council, Sarah Weiss, Associate Director of College Access and Support from the Washington State Achievement Council, and Denise Redinger, Counselor and Department Head at Richland High School, the Washington School Counselor Association High School Vice President. Thank you for being here this afternoon, ladies, and we are excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, Greg, and thank you to everyone for joining us today, especially in the late afternoon, after I know everyone has been busily learning in sessions all day, so we really appreciate you sticking with us, and it's great to be with you today. So I am Amelia Moore with the Washington Student Achievement Council. I'm just going to kick us off today by giving you all a little background on the work that the Student Achievement Council does and what we do as a state agency. The Student Achievement Council, acronym WASAC, we advance educational opportunities and attainment in Washington. So what does that mean? Well, in support of this mission, WASAC conducts statewide policy and research for strategic planning, all to increase the state's post-secondary attainment. We are particularly focused on better serving students of color and advancing anti-racist strategies. We also administer the state financial aid, most notably the Washington College Grant, which you'll hear more about in a moment, and the College Bound Scholarship, among others. And we also run programs to support access to college. So the Federal Gear Up program is housed at WASAC, and also what you'll primarily be hearing about today, which is the 12th year campaign. And that supports students with FAFSA WASFA completion and also college application. Washington's attainment goals, WASAC and the state have specific attainment goals focused on Washingtonians ages 25 to 44. You can see them on the screen here. We work to ensure that of this population, 100% have a high school diploma or equivalent, and 70% have a post-secondary credential. So today, Washington's post-secondary credential rate is only at 57%. So we definitely have some work to do. And as Greg stated at the top of this session, we know that affordability has limited access to post-secondary programs. And when we talk about post-secondary programs, we mean everything from short-term certificate programs and apprenticeships all the way through a four-year college degree. And that affordability can impact Washington students and families and their ability to access those opportunities. So applying for financial aid is a key step to accessing the financial assistance for college and career education. And that brings us to why we are all here today. We really want to understand both the opportunity and the challenge with financial aid in our state, and most importantly, want to share resources with all of you so that we can help more students complete financial aid applications, and that will make their post-secondary plans possible. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sarah, so you can begin discussing the opportunity.
Hey everyone, my name is Sarah Weiss. Weiss is nice, hopefully you can remember me that way. As was mentioned earlier, I'm at the Washington Student Achievement Council as well as with Amelia in the College Access and Support Division. I'm originally from Richland, Tri-Cities, so it's exciting to virtually be with you all today. And I look forward to sharing some information and hearing some questions and discussions as we move on. But really, Washington has a really robust set of financial aid programs that we are really proud of here in the state that are really an opportunity for students to access post-secondary career and college education, whether that's a 2-year, 4-year, public, private, apprenticeship program. There are a lot of opportunities. And I'm just going to briefly share some of those opportunities so that we can kind of get a sense of what we're talking about. The first program that I want to mention is the College Bound Scholarship Program. This is our state's early commitment to low-income students who are eligible in middle school to sign up for College Bound. It allows them to, in middle school, know that they're going to receive funding should they do a series of pledge requirements, as well as be income eligible when they go to college. that they will know that tuition at public rates, some fees plus a small book allowance will be covered for them. So knowing that in middle school can be really powerful for students, and having the opportunity to know that the state is there for them to support them in their dreams as they pursue post-secondary education. As is noted on the slide, it can be used at over 60 colleges and universities in the state of Washington. So that's 2-year, 4-year, public, private, so a lot of different opportunities. So College Bound Scholarship is one of our largest state financial aid programs that I wanted to mention as well. In addition to the College Bound Scholarship Program, we have the Washington College Grant. This is a fantastic program. It's a rebranding, an expansion of formerly the State Need Grant, if you're familiar with that. But this is essentially a new program that allows students to receive more funding for more kinds of education, and more students have an opportunity with the eligibility expansion, which we'll talk about in a few moments. But regardless of what a student's interested in pursuing, if they're interested in a technical career, more of an academic pursuit, there are options for them with Washington College Grant. So what's new about it is, beginning this academic year that started a couple months ago, is there's guaranteed funding for eligible students. In the past with State Need Grant, there were students who were eligible, but because of funding limitations at the funding for the program, were not able to receive funds. So however, moving forward, all eligible students will receive funding, which is fantastic. The program expanded eligibility to more low and middle income students and families. Partial grants are eligible to students up to 100% of the median family income. And it also supports people who are pursuing registered apprenticeship programs. So not just 2 or 4-year college degrees, but apprenticeship programs as well that are registered with the Student Achievement Council. Now, when we talk about, what does that mean, more money and kind of expanded eligibility, here are some statistics to kind of give you a sense of what we're talking about. For a student from a family of 4 with the Washington College Grant, if their annual income is at $53,000 or less, they're looking at a full award, which is public tuition at a 2-year or 4-year college. If they go to a private school, it would take that amount and apply to a private school. If they're from a family of 4, and if they are up to $97,000 of that family income, they'll receive a partial award. So between those amounts, they're going to be prorated. And so students will be able to receive funding at a prorated level depending on where their family income lies. Now I'm going to hand it back over to Amelia.
Great. Thank you so much, Sarah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenge that we face in our state. So if you could go forward to the next slide, please, Sarah, that'd be great. So students can't access the Washington College Grant and the College Bound Scholarship and other state aid without filing a financial aid application, the FAFSA or the WASFA. And every year, about half of our high school seniors are just not completing this step. So that means that students are leaving millions of federal grant dollars on the table due to not completing the FAFSA. We know in 2017, it was $50 million just in Pell Grants alone. And we also know that our college-going culture as a state is weak. Our direct post-secondary enrollment rate has hovered around 60% for the last several years. That places us 46th in the nation. And that means that 40% of our students graduate high school and don't enroll in any type of post-secondary program within 1 year of graduation. So the educational system is really not providing our students with the resources and information that they need. So this table shows the number of Mid-Columbia Basin college-bound seniors in 2018 from each county who were eligible for the college-bound scholarship, but they did not receive it because they did not complete a financial aid application. So you can see that's 383 students in Benton County, 453 students in Franklin, and 91 students in Walla Walla County. So what does this mean? This means that not only did these students miss out on receiving the college-bound scholarship, but as the table demonstrates, estimates also show that these students also missed out on over $3.5 million in potential Pell Grant dollars. And statewide, almost half of college-bound seniors, about 46%, did not complete a FAFSA in 2017. So again, these were students who were eligible, but did not receive the college-bound scholarship because they didn't complete a financial aid application. And because the majority of college-bound students are students of color, this money on the table problem is also a racial equity issue. So simply put, the state has a responsibility to better serve our students of color. So to give us a little more insight of what else we know about financial aid application completion in our state, I'll turn it back over to you, Sarah.
In Washington, there are 2 financial aid applications. You may or may not be aware of that, but there are 2 applications that students can complete to apply for either federal or state aid. The FAFSA, as we've been talking about, the free application for federal student aid, that is the application that applies students for the federal aid opportunities, such as Pell Grant, as well as state financial aid programs for students who are U.S. citizens or permanent residents. For students who may meet Washington residency requirements but are not eligible for federal programs due to immigration status, or are undocumented students who meet Washington requirements, those students would apply for state financial aid using the Washington application for state financial aid, or WASFA application. And so students should only do one. They don't need to do both. We call it the rule of one, always thinking about one application. And so when we look at kind of where we sit in terms of the number of students who are applying for financial aid nationally with FAFSA applications, using this graph here is using all potential seniors in the senior class. It's been pretty stagnant. We rank in the bottom, handful of states in terms of FAFSA completion. And that's stayed about the same for the last 3, 4, 5 years. In terms of WASFA applicants, again, the application for state financial aid for students who are not able to complete a FAFSA, the completion remains limited. I mean, it's kind of bounced around in the same vicinity. It's a little difficult because we don't really know how many eligible students are out there, but we know that there are probably a lot more students than are filling out the application. Because we see that with FAFSA as well. And so really both application numbers have remained stagnant in terms of students who've applied. And as Amelia noted, this is the gateway. This is how students get their name into the pool, into the pool of monies that are out there in the various both federal and or state financial aid programs. Now, as Amelia mentioned, this really is a racial equity issue because we see when we look deeper into the data of FAFSA completion, we see different racial disparities in both completion rate as well as the error rate. So when a student applies for financial aid, did they fill it out completely? Did they finalize it? Did it go through without any issues? If not, then they're considered having an error with their application. And so some students of color are applying for financial aid at higher rates than their white peers or even the state average, but racial disparities still exist in both the completion and the error rate, as I mentioned. And that's really an issue of racial equity, and how are we supporting the students who are furthest away from educational opportunity perhaps, and really are looking for our assistance as educators to help complete those applications. And now we're going to jump into a series of slides that's going to talk about resources, materials, workshops, supports, many of them virtual right now, and how what is available to help support all of us in this work together to support our students through the college application and financial aid application process. First, I want to talk about an initiative called Aim Higher Washington. This is an initiative that really spun out of the creation of the Washington College Grant Program, expansion, I should say, of the Washington College Grant Program, in that we know that there's this amazing opportunity with College Bound, with Washington College Grant, with many of the federal programs, but we know our students are not applying for them. And so how can we, at the state level, kind of coordinate this effort amongst educators and partners and anyone out there who wants to see more students pursuing educational opportunities Again, educational opportunities being defined as very broad here. And so AIM Higher Washington is an initiative to support increasing financial aid completion. It's created, and I'm going to actually use a metaphor here. It's really an umbrella term. And I always say this, I love the metaphor of umbrella terms. And I say that's because I'm an Eastern Washington girl who now lives on the West Side and uses an umbrella. And so I need one still. But anyway, 12th year campaign, which I'm going to dive into a little bit more, our partnerships, whether that's with education organizations, schools, which Denise is going to talk about later, community, government leaders, organizations, all of you who are on this call, we're hoping will join the effort as well. Digital tools. OtterBot is our free texting service. That's my friend Otter as well joining us on the call. OtterBot is a free texting service that students can receive free financial aid assistance by texting into Otter. We also have College to Career Compass, which is an online backpack tool essentially that students can look for programs, help get pulled into learning more about programs out there at their community and technical colleges, four-year public private institutions, and then get their information to those colleges to learn more. So it's really a career exploration tool as well as a matching tool. And then we've also done Train the Trainer workshops where we train volunteers to help students and families and adults, anyone really who needs assistance with a financial aid application. And so this umbrella term, AIM Higher Washington, if you're interested in learning more about it or joining as an AIM Higher partner, would love to have you and talking about how you and your role can support financial aid application. On the slide, there's a website where you can go to learn more and contact us if you're interested. Another opportunity that's come up actually this year is the first year for it in terms of supporting students through the financial aid application process is a financial aid advising day. That came out of Senate Bill 6141 last year. And districts and schools are now required to ensure that all 12th graders receive a set of information, eligibility for Washington College Grant, information about the FAFSA and the WASFA, a new financial aid calculator that we have on the website there where students can put in their family's information and get an estimate of what Washington College Grant or Pell they might be eligible for, plus a few other things, so that districts and schools need to provide that information to all 12th graders as part of the financial aid advising day requirement. The notification requirements, it needs to be during school time. Districts are encouraged to support filing events with our 12th year campaign, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. We've sponsored many statewide virtual filing events this fall. We've had just about 1,000 students attend those so far, and we still got a few to go. And then assistance. Our 12th year campaign provides free materials, training, resources. We've got videos around financial aid topics. We've got flyers that can be used in a digital environment. We have free printed materials if that's something of interest. Yes, we are still receiving and fulfilling printed material orders right now, even though most folks are working in a virtual environment. If you're interested in any of that, we really want to make sure that the people have the resources that they need, they know is accurate, they know is the same as what someone is receiving in another part of the state, that is consistent information around financial aid. There are videos, there are quizzes on there that you can use with students or potential students and families. So lots of great information on the 12th year campaign website. And if you are from a school or district, we do maintain an online portal that allows for you to access the FAFSA completion status of your students. And so if you're interested in getting more information about that, just visit the website, and there's a data section on the website, and you can request access to that portal where you'll get student level information through that secure portal to see, hey, did Sarah Weiss do her FAFSA yet? Did she do it right? Did she have any questions? To be able to figure that out. So that's really what the 12th year campaign is about supporting those working with students who are looking at applying for financial aid, so that you all don't have to reinvent the wheel And all of that is free, by the way, too. All those materials are free. The final resource I want to mention is really one geared towards students directly. It's our action plan and planning for your future website. It's a one-stop shop for juniors and seniors, though honestly anyone can access it. It's got lots of great information. Career exploration resources, all the way to application information. So you're going to see the college to career compass listed on there, OtterBot, our texting tool, which are more exploratory and assistance tools. And then there's links to all of the colleges and their resources, apprenticeship programs, how to apply for things. And then there's a lot of guidance that's specific to the current COVID-19 situation. So a lot of colleges have adjusted admission requirements or have adjusted their processes, and all of that will be linked to on the action plan website as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Denise.
Hey, thank you, Sarah. I am showing you what many high schools do across our state, which is saturate the market and then and hope for people to attend. Like many high schools, we face one of our biggest challenges is we hold events and attendance is not always very strong. And so, gosh, if somebody out there, if you guys have ideas of things that are working for you to get people to attend when we can attend in person or virtually, boy, I would love to see those ideas in the chat. My slides, I'm just going to walk through, highlight some things that are happening in our district. I've been in the Richland School District since 1995, and so have today's conference has really been kind of a walk down memory lane. I know everybody, I think, from just about every presentation that I watched today. So, but I'm just going to walk through the things that are happening in our district. Some of it is from me, some of it is from my colleagues throughout the district. So this first one that I'm just going to talk about is I leave when I'm not available, like today, I leave an out of office message, and you can see this area that's subtly has an arrow to it and is circled. Anyway, I just leave this out there just to remind kids as they're looking for me, hey, remember, this is happening, apply early kind of thing. So this is an example of a way I can communicate even when I'm not in my office. Hey, and some of our schools use a Remind app. We know that our teens are very app happy. And so the Remind app is really kind of an announcement app that we've used. And so we send out these messages. The top one is mine. It has my name on it. The bottom one is a similar announcement with a link from our neighborhood comprehensive high school. There's a limited space, number of characters. So following my announcement here, I added the link as a second announcement. This is an example of our College and Career Center at Richland High School and our neighbors across town. Our counseling caseload, well, mine 3 years ago was 600 kids. It's down to 400 now. And so with that number of kids, our College and Career Center really picks up a big part of the load in helping to manage high school, beyond plan, financial aid, announcements, and they really do manage our scholarships as well. There's just not time in the counseling office for that. So this is an example of the month of November. And you can see a few, well, you guys can't see my cursor, but you can, as you look on there, you'll see a few financial aid nights. Some of these things, if you look on the 18th, for instance, so there's one for SAGE, and that's a kind of a private partnership. And if you were to open all of these links, you would see that we have a really robust partnership with our community partners. And Sarah and Amelia said, well, yeah, but like who? So Columbia Basin College, great partners. Melanie Cassiato over there has put on a workshop for us that we have recorded. And I'll show you in a second my Canvas page, and we have her video linked. The SAGE College Counseling, that's through partnership with GISA Credit Union. And WSU Tri-Cities is a great partner. So I've heard that kind of a common theme across all the presentations today is really just partnerships. We have such strong community partners in the Tri-Cities. We are very blessed. And until today, I guess I kind of took that for granted. So again, I just want to say thanks to everybody who partners with us. But this is an example of what kids have access to when they go looking, or when we send out messages, hey, go check the College and Career Center. Next one. And so this is just kind of an extension of what I just showed you. Again, highlighting our community partnerships. If we broke down that Sage College Prep Services, that event, this is what that would look like for our kiddos when they click on the links that are available. So I kind of referenced this a moment ago. In Richland School District, we use Canvas, and each staff member is asked to put up a home page. And so if this was a live page, this is my office. Welcome to my office. Everything on here, if this was the actual site, has a link to it. The ones you can kind of see, they're underlined and in blue. So we kind of have learned that these are links. And so you can click on those, but you'll also, the running start here on the bulletin board, those are both links to those programs. But really right up front and almost center is FAFSA, WASFA information. Each one of those different lines, from the FAFSA video to the WASFA, those all hold links that kids can click on and continue down and find more information. Okay. Yeah, everything on my page is linked. Our course catalog is in there, and the senior info in bright yellow highlight in the back. Also more information for our financial aid workshops and college bound workshop and various things, information that we're either hosting or WASAC is hosting, or other partnerships that are across our state and within the Tri-City community. Another avenue we have for making announcements besides the Remind app, again, we have a seniors page, Richland High School Seniors Canvas page, class of 2021. And then this particular announcement was just posted last week. I'm finding that as I examine my own biases, I am working to how I title things. And so that in the past, I may have said financial aid. And as I examine my own practices, I'm finding that I'm a little more intentional on what I call stuff. So if we go to the next slide, I think, Sarah, it'll show you a little bit. Yeah. So when our kids click on that announcement I just showed you, they'll see this information broken down a little bit more with a Spanish language link as well for our families that need that. So another example of how we're trying to communicate. Thanks, Sarah. Next. This is a Canvas page from a colleague at one of our smaller programs, also in our district. And so she has set hers up, and over to the right-hand side, based on what we're focusing on today, you'll see her, apparently that Do the FAFSA is a pretty popular graphic image. So you can see how she's communicating with her students as well about financial aid. All right. So again, her page, same staff member, same colleague, just another way, information, again, trying to saturate the market with all the information we can for our kids. This is our comprehensive high school on the other side of town. And I had reached out to my colleagues in our district and said, hey, share with me what you can about how we're communicating with our kiddos. And so this is her announcement. They have, happens to be, I think, her particular her campus page. This same teacher or same staff member, again, subtly circled at the bottom there. I mentioned Melanie Casiato at Columbia Basin College, and how we recorded her workshop. And so the link is posted there. This is how they posted the link and made it available for their kiddos. And mine was just happened to be on my Canvas page. These are just kind of a wrap up. These are the other ways and common ways that we share with kids. Some of them are not so new. Some of them are ways we've been communicating with kids since I started in the district in 1995, the good old daily bulletin. But we open in our district, we also open computer labs when it's safe to do so for parents and students to come in the evenings and to help facilitate and troubleshoot filing. Last year was the first time, and I think it worked pretty well for a first year, but at our open house, our back to school night, and our 2 sets of conferences in the winter or late fall and spring, we also did a dual FAFSA completion night. and hosted that on our campus so that kids could come in and work on their FAFSA maybe while mom and dad were talking with teachers. We planned for it to have interpreters on site when safe, to help with some of our non-English speaking communities. FAFSA Fridays, and one of our schools does this, and they partner with our local community college. Again, the student video and the announcements that are read to students. Newsletters, weekly electronic updates to staff, students, and families that go out. The internet is so nice for that. And we also do those mass emails and the robo-dialers. I know some families say, yeah, when I know it's the school calling, I just hang up. So, but again, trying to saturate the market. And then we have various social media accounts where we post information as well. So I think that's the end of mine, right? I did check using the WASFA portal. Our completion rate right now, we're about 18.7% in our school district. So again, I don't know if ideas came in through the chat about things that you guys are doing, but boy, we'd sure appreciate any ideas, especially if they're working well, to get people attending. Thanks, Amelia. Thank you, Sarah, for inviting me.
Thank you so much, Denise, for sharing what you all are doing and the good work you're doing. Now we really want to hear from all of you. So if you have any questions, it'd be great if you could put it in the Q&A. Or if you don't have any questions, like Denise said, we would love to hear about things that you're doing that perhaps we didn't touch on today, either for financial aid application completion or in helping your students plan for post-secondary. And if you don't have a question or some work to highlight, the last thing we would love to hear from is just your biggest takeaway from today. So what did you learn in this presentation? What was helpful to you? What was kind of new information? So I know it's late in the day, but we would love to hear from all of you. I think that's the part I miss the most about presenting in person, is actually being able to engage in a dialogue with folks. So we will try to do that through Zoom. While we're waiting, because I see the Q&A is a little quiet, so while we're waiting for folks to chat in, either Sarah or Denise, I wonder if you could talk a little more about how the school closures and COVID-19 has changed this work, both, sort of the challenges, but also some of the ways that maybe it's created new opportunities to reach more students. Either Sarah about 12th year, or Denise at your school.
Yeah, I'll jump in. One thing that comes to my mind is so in the past, we have a staff member. Her name's Christina. Some of you may know her. She's like the most passionate person I think I've ever met about financial aid. She would try and support as many events statewide as she could with volunteering. She would help coordinate volunteers when needed at schools and districts, help connect them to colleges or others or partners if they weren't already connected with folks. And so but she's one person, right? And she's one person. She can't get everywhere. She can't, serve, everybody. And so, but what she's been able to do with the 12th year campaign this year is we have 7 statewide virtual events. They're all Zoom. There's breakout rooms. Schools can co-sponsor with us. And there's a couple left. So if you're interested in doing that, just jump in on that 12th year campaign website or contact me. And schools can co-sponsor. That means, that there'll be, we'll have a specific Zoom room for you and your students. If the student has a question that is more personal in nature, they'll be brought into a private room with one of our volunteers or Christina. And so we've been able to as a state agency, been able to serve, so far, I think we've got 2 or 3 events left, about 1,000 students through these events, where in the past, it was hard to do that individually. And so these events have been really successful. I don't know that we necessarily would have tried them, to be honest, if we weren't in the situation that we're in. But I think that it's something that will probably continue post pandemic, knock on wood with that term. But I think the other thing that I would just mention is the partnerships that we've seen within districts to co-sponsor events and co-sponsor financial aid work has been really cool too. So I think schools and districts are coming together in some new ways that we're seeing with 12th year as well.
So we do have some questions coming in. The first is, can people in their 20s apply for these? And I'm guessing that's Washington College Grant and College Bound, non-high school grads, and GED. Did you want to take that one, Sarah?
Sure, absolutely. So it's going to depend on the program. So College Bound Scholarship students need to apply for that in middle school, and then they need to graduate from high school, Washington High School, to get College Bound. So GED would not suffice for College Bound. And they would need to enroll within 1 year of high school graduation. So that's really geared towards the more, the student going right after high school to college. However, the Washington College Grant is open to anyone regardless of age. Student can have a GED, student can have graduated from an out-of-state high school. They just need to be a Washington resident now and meet the income guidelines and go to an eligible program. So Washington College Grant, definitely open to a wider audience. College Bound is, again, really geared towards helping those younger students who might not think college or career education post-high school is an opportunity, to help them at a young age realize that it is. So it depends on the program.
Great. Another question, any ideas about how local business has jumped in or can jump in to help encourage students to apply or to better inform their working parents?
Yeah, that's a great point. One thing that I remember last year at this in-person event Amelia and I were at, and I remember talking to some folks about doing like employee sessions with their employees around awareness around financial aid, whether it's for the employees or their students or their children. So I think, doing work like, workshops, virtual, or that trainings for employees, that's something we could certainly help facilitate, as well as I would imagine local colleges might be able to, as well, in addition to WASFA. But that's something, a presentation or a workshop for employees around the available opportunities. That's something that we've seen has been of interest. The other piece that I would mention, in about a month, I have a presentation with the Seattle Jobs Initiative, which is a WorkSource organization to helping people. I default to students, but I'm showing my bias there. But helping people find jobs and connect to resources. So working with the WorkSource organizations as well, to try and get information out there to folks.
Great. And then we have a question about College Bound. Are we seeing an increase in the number of parents willing to sign and return the College Bound scholarship application in middle school? And are there some demonstrated strategies that have worked to increase sign up?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one as well. That's a great question. We over the last, several years, we had been seeing an increase in sign up. 2 years ago, so 2019, that 8th grade class, about 72% of the eligible students signed up for the program, which was an increase of 2% over the previous year. So it was climbing. I will say, though, with the pandemic and the building closures and just the chaotic access to students and families, we are seeing a decrease in applications right now for this current cohort. Through the administrative rulemaking process, we did extend the deadline to November 30th to try and, as much as we could, to try and help students apply for the program. But the second part of the question, Amelia, was any demonstrated strategies, right, around?
Yeah.
So something that we've seen and heard from folks that really works is not just saying here, and not insinuating that everyone does this or people do this, but it's not just here's this form, it's going to be money for later, but it's like the why behind it. Like why is signing up for this program important? Why is sharing your information with a government agency important? And why is signing up for College Bound as a middle schooler important? And it's, helping folks realize, showing whether it's information around income, earnings, potential, If you're thinking about any type of 2-year, 4 years, so showing that it's really a diversity of opportunities, so lots of opportunities, over 60 types of colleges and universities out there for College Bound. So really focusing in on the why sign up for College Bound. We've heard from folks seems to really make a difference. And we've got flyers and resources around that why on our website, which is collegebound.wa.gov. I don't think that one was on the slides, but collegebound.wa.gov has flyers and resources around that as well for middle school families. And it's available in 11 languages.
Great. And then the last question is just ideas about what other regions have done. So I know, Denise, you shared quite a bit. Sarah, are you aware of some other regional work, either through partnerships or some other innovative strategies that are taking place?
Did it say, like, I'm thinking about financial aid completion versus College Bound sign up?
Yeah.
What comes to mind, a couple of regions come to mind. One is the Clark County area, so Vancouver, similar to the partnerships that Denise mentioned that she has. WSU Vancouver, Clark College, and Vancouver Public Schools and Evergreen School District have some really fantastic partnerships. And what's really neat about WSU Vancouver in that role, and I'm not sure if WSU Tri-Cities has this, so if you do and I'm missing it, I apologize, but WSU Vancouver has a financial aid outreach position in their financial aid office. And so they focus, they're not a financial aid application processor, but their goal is around financial aid outreach, regardless of what institution the student is looking at. And so partnering with those local districts and the other college in the area have been really neat. We've seen, increases in financial aid completion out of the Vancouver area, and I would attribute it a lot to the partnerships that they have. Another region that comes to my mind is the Whatcom and Skagit Valley area. Futures Northwest is a nonprofit organization that leads and kind of organizes the efforts up there. Again, bringing in districts for trainings. Our team, Christina, leads a lot of those trainings, doing joint events. So really those partnerships across districts have been really valuable to kind of maximize opportunities and limit staff burnout at the colleges who are helping with financial aid applications and things like that. So those are some areas that come to mind of doing some really kind of neat and innovative things.
On that, Sarah, we do, if we call WSU and said, hey, we need some expertise in this area, they're on it. They would, whether the student's coming to their university or anywhere, they jump in and pitch in and are here in a second.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Denise.
You bet.
Yeah, I think it's great when we can share that transition space between K-12 and higher ed. And I also know that some Running Start programs also really do a lot of work to make sure that their Running Start students are completing the FAFSA and WASFA too. So it's always inspiring to see those partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to point out, I put in the chat a couple of links. Sarah referenced the Financial Aid Advising Day. And so I just put a couple of links for if you're interested in more information on that newish legislation that went into effect this school year. Day is kind of a misnomer. It could be a day, it could be a series of days, it could be a series of events. So, but I think personally, professionally, I think it's a move in the right direction that we're making sure that our seniors are getting that information. The last kind of thing I want to say is I'm also the avid counselor for our seniors. And so those kids got a unit of instruction last year at the middle of 11th grade, where we talked about College Bound, WASFA, FAFSA, all kinds of things that were related to knowledge they needed before their senior year. So school counselors are also doing units of instruction with their kids to try and, again, saturate the market of information.
Great, thank you, Denise. And I also threw a few links in there. There's the link to the 12th year campaign site, which truly really has every kind of resource that you would need for your financial aid advising day. Some wonderful things there, so I encourage folks to check that out, as well as the Aim Higher site that can give you some information about how to get involved in that campaign, and also the action plan page for juniors and seniors that Sarah was talking about. I just sent my daughter, who's a senior, to that page and said you need to be looking through some of these things. So so hopefully everyone has a chance to check those out. But I think if there are not any more questions, that will close us out. Really want to thank Washington STEM for the opportunity to be here today. And I will turn it back over to you, Greg.
But I just have one quick question for you. And that is, with all that money that's left on the table, and I was just amazed by that at the start of your presentation. So what do you think the hurdles are that are keeping kids from applying for the scholarship money?
Sarah, did you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a few different things, and probably different for every student. But nationally, there's been studies done around that, and it's lack of thinking that they'll qualify tends to be a big one. And I think especially with the new Washington College grant expanding to more students being eligible. I think that's going to be a big one, that students don't think they'll qualify for aid, and they'll think it's only loans or it's only, one type of program. Financial aid is an umbrella. There's my metaphor again. There's loans, there's scholarships, there's grants, which is what Washington College grant is. There's lots of different types of financial aid. So not thinking they'll be eligible is a big one. They're complicated forms, for how many resources that are amazing and helpful. They're complicated and complex forms to navigate. I think it's down in the 20% range of students are selected for verification, which makes it even more complex, which means they need to provide additional information to verify what they put on the FAFSA. So they're complex forms to get through, especially for our first generation families who this is the first time they may be navigating this process. It's complex. And so I think, those are probably a couple that I would mention.
From the boots on the ground, I would concur with that. I think our parents are aware that financial aid today is not necessarily the same as it was when they were younger, perhaps, and some of the opportunities have been expanded. And so once we get the word out, I think we'll see a flood, right? Think positive.
Yes.
Our goal.
I think the only thing I'll add is that we do see in those national studies that Sarah referenced, we do see a difference in how low-income students answer, and they are much more likely to say the reason they don't file is because they don't have enough information. So that is definitely an equity challenge in making sure that we're getting the information to the students who need it the most.
Good. Thank you. Those are great answers. So Amelia and Sarah and Denise, we just thank you so much for taking time to talk with us this afternoon. Denise mentioned earlier that she'd worked with a lot of folks who were on the panels, and I just want to say that Denise and I worked together in the last century in a different school district. We really appreciate your presentation and also the importance of it, because one of the things we want to do is make sure that every possible kid gets a chance to attend some kind of post-secondary training, whether that's college or trade school or whatever. And you gave us some great tips to help us along that road. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And so that brings our session to a close. And I just want to give a sincere thanks to all of the speakers and for all of you for attending our summit today. And a special thank you to our technical team, Cole Thompson, Mary Kirby, Lori Ann Donovan, and to Diane Munn, who kept us all, or excuse me, Dana Munn, who kept us all organized throughout this. Our purpose for today's conference has been to examine how education and business can work together to build the workforce of the future. Our hope is that all of us have gathered a couple of ideas or made a couple of connections that we can act upon to build that workforce and the future of our community. On behalf of the STEM Foundation, ESD 123, we thank you for attending our Southeastern Washington Future Workforce Summit. And as Chevy Chase used to say at the end of Weekend Update, good night and have a pleasant tomorrow.